The little girl clutched her baby brother, tears dripping onto his blanket. "Don't hurt us," she whispered, her voice trembling like a candle in the wind. The elegant woman above her sneered, towering in cruelty. But then, the front door burst open, and the man they never expected, her father, a millionaire forged by sacrifice, had returned. The kitchen was dim, its silence broken only by the muffled sobs of a child. The floor was cold against her small knees as she knelt, clutching her baby brother close. A bottle lay overturned beside them, milk spreading in a pale pool across the dark wood, its sour smell rising into the air. Her brother whimpered softly, the sound fragile and helpless. She pressed him tighter to her chest, as if her arms were the only shield in the world strong enough to protect him. But her arms were so small, her body so thin, and the fear in her heart so heavy. Above her loomed a woman in a flowing red dress. She was tall, elegant, and cruel. Her eyes burned with scorn as she leaned closer, her voice sharp enough to cut through the air. "Pathetic," the woman hissed, her words dripping like poison. The little girl's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, barely audible, "Don't hurt us." Her plea was met not with compassion, but with a sneer. And in the doorway, a man in a dark suit stood watching. He did not laugh, but he did not help. His silence was colder than cruelty itself. He looked away, unwilling to confront the injustice before him. His silence screamed louder than the woman's rage. In that moment, the little girl felt smaller than she had ever felt before. Yet, even as she trembled, something inside her refused to break. Her arms clutched her brother tighter. Her heart whispered a promise, "Daddy will come." The woman in red circled them like a predator, circling prey. Her heels clicked against the wood, each step echoing like a hammer. She was fueled not by necessity, but by power. The power of seeing fear in eyes too young to defend themselves. The man in the doorway adjusted his tie, pretending to be detached, but his cowardice was written in the way he avoided the child's gaze. He was complicit in silence. He chose comfort over justice, safety over courage. The little girl's tears blurred her vision. She could see only fragments. The polished shoes of the man, the shimmer of red fabric swaying above her, the shadow of cruelty pressing closer. She lowered her head, whispering again to her brother, "Daddy will come." The words were not for him. They were for herself, a fragile rope she held onto in a world that seemed eager to let her drown. Far away, her father's world was built of marble, glass, and power. He was a millionaire, a man whose name carried weight in boardrooms, a man who could move markets with a single decision. To strangers, he was untouchable, but his fortune was not born of luxury. It was carved from pain. He had once been a barefoot boy, walking dusty roads, a soldier carrying burdens too heavy for his young shoulders. He had known hunger that gnawed at his bones, loneliness that chilled his nights, and loss that carved scars into his heart. He had seen friends fall beside him in silence, their names remembered only in whispers. He had survived storms that broke stronger men, and from those storms he carried one lesson: silence can be strength. Noise fades, but dignity endures. When he left the battlefield, he carried that silence into the world of business. He worked while others slept. He studied when others wasted time. He built brick by brick, contract by contract, until he stood among the wealthy. But wealth was never his end. His promise was deeper. His children would never endure the cruelty he once knew. His empire was not for vanity, but for protection. Back in the kitchen, the little girl remembered her father's stories. At bedtime, he had spoken of dragons defeated not by swords, but by patience, of storms survived not by shouting, but by holding firm. His voice echoed in her memory. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet that refuses to break. She looked at her baby brother, tears falling onto his blanket. "Daddy will come," she whispered again. This time, her voice was steadier. She believed it. The woman in red grew angrier at the child's defiance. She wanted submission, but the girl's silent resistance only fed her fury. She raised her hand, her eyes burning with intent. The man in the doorway still stood frozen, unwilling to move. His silence weighed heavier by the second. The little girl's arms shook, but she refused to let go of her brother. She was terrified, yet her courage lay in her refusal. The room was heavy with tension. Cruelty stood tall, silence stood complicit, and innocence knelt, trembling but unbroken. And then, the sound that changed everything. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, unhurried. The air shifted before he appeared. Authority had